When the devil came, he was not red. He was chrome, 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 and he said, come with me. Come, come, come with me. You must go.
Welcome to the Hell is Chrome podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Dyer. This is the longest running supporter group podcast in San Diego. Thank you for joining us, whether it be on our live stream or maybe the next day, the next week, or years from now, you're listening on a podcast app. Thanks so much. Let's talk about once again this week. It's funny how we always seem to have lots to talk about given there's no soccer. But alas, we're here. Unprepared as usual. I barely sat down and got home. So once again, we are going to lean on producer John Cross to be the responsible adult in the room and keep the show on the rails. John, I hope you are haven't been drinking. You're ready to drive in a straight line and navigate us through this the next hour or so. How are you doing?
I am, thank you. I'm doing well. I am ready. I did actually prepare a full rundown for tonight's show, so um, I am ready to go.
Awesome. So, before we dive into everything, we are coming off, I think, probably the first, and I'm sure this is in your rundown, so I'm just jumping right ahead. I'm sure the first of the Forge the Foundation event with the club. And I know we're going to talk about some of the details maybe later on, but just hot or cold, how are you feeling about the club and its approach to its supporter groups after this weekend? Just broad strokes.
Hot, I guess. I mean, but I've had the fortunate experience of having a lot more contact than you have. You were at the event, especially on
Yeah,
Sunday. I'd love to
rub it
get
in,
your
John. Yes, rub it
take
in,
on it.
please. I mean, I know I've just, been in all the meetings. I'm always in the room. I'm totally in the loop, and I know you, Andrew, are hopelessly out of the loop, constantly flailing around for information. That's cool. Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I am empathizing more and more with the challenges that the club is like kind of facing in uh, managing this supporter section. There's a lot that goes into. I mean, this is like the most obvious thing, so you don't have to tune into a podcast to learn this. But I feel like there's a lot that goes into like starting a new major league sporting franchise. And unlike I think the other sports that expansions do happen, um, this supporter element is such an important part of soccer and getting it right. Like everybody wants to get it right, and what does right even look like? Um, so the further along this path we go, the more we hear from the club and we navigate what we're all trying to do here, the more I can kind of appreciate like just how much work they've got looking ahead until next year.
Right, and not just the club, but us as supporters as well, to lay that foundation and figure all the details. We've been talking for months about how we're working together and there's an alliance, but there's a lot of details that still have to be worked out. And I'm not, seeing on the horizon any big issues or problems. But still, there's so many pieces to put in place if we want this to be a well-functioning alliance, and what that represents on match day, and how do we within that maintain the independence of individual SGs as well. So there's a delicate balance in there of and we're navigating that. We I think we had some bumps even on Sunday with that, but there's you know there's challenges ahead, but I am generally highly optimistic in the direction we're headed.
You may be surprised to hear this, but I actually have thoughts on that very topic.
What?
I don't want to get into it just yet. I think when we kind of do the debrief on that part of the Forge the Foundation thing, I think that will be the time to do it. But so there was some SDFC football related news this week. We've seen reports that I think I don't know what they call them, athletic director, whatever that kind of job is. It looks like they've that person has been confirmed. Also, the club is, I guess they're signing Chucky Lozano. Right? That's uh, not the doll. This is not the Chucky doll. This is a soccer player from Mexico, which it's a
Good
little bit
soccer player.
it's a little bit obvious. I think the easiest thing to do when you're talking about assembling an expansion side in San Diego is like, let's sign popular players from the Mexican national team. I think that's a pretty obvious thing to do, and I'm glad that it appears that's exactly what they're doing, because he's not the only player whose name has been floating around. I thought this guy retired, but I guess Ochoa is still a goalkeeper at MLS caliber goalkeeper. Question mark. What do you think?
Um, I really haven't followed. I don't know if he's still in Italy right now playing, but yeah, is he MLS caliber? I probably still, that he would be, but he is also getting up there in years, and I guess if there's one position on the field where you can still play fairly well, and especially, um, if you have good positional sense, even though as you get older, maybe your reaction time slows a little bit. But if you have those other qualities, goalkeepers tend to last longer in their career, especially if they're good, than your average field player does.
All right.
Just different demands on the body.
Yeah, it's regardless of who they are, it's nice to have some names. We can kind of start to see where things are going. And this is the end of April when we're recording this. And this is just going to keep happening over the next days, weeks, and months, where we're going to find out more about who's going to be on this inaugural squad. Um, you know, this club, this team, they want to win. It appears, from what I've heard, talking to the people from the front office. Yes, there is this right to dream element and this player development model that they are doing. I did not like the Guardian story about the Ajax, like the Ajax of
Oh,
MLS.
right.
I
Yeah.
don't think that's a very apt comparison. But it's the Guardian. What are you going to do? Uh, that being said, the model that they're pursuing is unique in MLS, and they are going to be a one-off in this league. So it does give us something extra to kind of look at, and it's not just another MLS club, because there are all of these other elements playing into what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely seems, from everything I have been able to see on my end, that this club, as you said, wants to win trophies, and they have a different approach. And again, I'll, at risk of you commenting about this on me again, but I have had the chance to hear from people and see some things, and they have a different model. They it will be different than what we normally see in MLS. I think it's exciting of what they're trying to put together. And, and that's just the team part of it. And frankly, that's less interesting to me than the work they're trying to put in the community and the things that they're putting. Because it's one of the things, I struggled with, and I think a lot of people, we wanted to know what this team was going to do and how they were going to respond. Were they going to do things like the Loyal did into the community? Were they going to connect with the community or even make that attempt to connect with the community? And how are supporters going to be treated? Are supporters going to be treated as just a marketing arm extension? Right. So I think those were a lot of the fears people had going in. And I think as people are finding out more and more about the people who are involved directly with the team, it it is much more than that. They are making those connections to the community. Um, they are supportive of what we are trying to do to build the
Mhm.
supporter culture. And they have a team full of people who know soccer, who aren't, I would say they're soccer people first, and then whatever role they have in the organization with SDFC. At least the people we are interacting with all the time.
They were
And
smart
that
enough to
is
hire local people too.
a lot of local people. And even the people they've brought in people with tremendous amount of experience in other organizations from around the world, right? It's not just they hired a good marketing person or a good salesperson. I mean, they've brought in people who have intimate knowledge about soccer and a lot of people with high level clubs. So um, all that is very encouraging right now. So it's the things we wanted to see, and I hope it continues. We as supporters, I'm sure we'll keep pressure on them that does continue, especially the connection with the community. But I'm excited. I'm just generally excited overall for where we're headed right now.
So, talking about things we want to see, we got a nice close up look at the supporter section on Sunday. The club invited kind of an open invitation to members of the 7 supporter groups to come to Snapdragon Stadium, uh, talk with club representatives about things that we want to see, what we want a match day experience to be. Some of the topics that came up were, tailgating, amenities, vendors, food and drink vendors. But I think the most important thing and the real reason that we were all there was to talk about what we're going to do in that section and what we need for that supporter section. So, um, I don't think this is the last meeting. This Forge the Foundation. It's like a series. The idea is that it's going to be an ongoing conversation. Um, I think that the circumstances of this conversation need to change. But before we get into that, um, so you, like me, were there on Sunday. What did you come out of there with?
Yeah, we were both there with roughly 100 other people, as you said, from all 7 supporter groups. And uh, in general, it was good. It was good to see the enthusiasm and the excitement that everybody had. It was nice. It was especially nice for me because I am one of the few people who had yet to set foot in Snapdragon. So that was my very first opportunity to be in the stadium and actually look at the supporter section. It was kind of nice to see it with no one else around, right? Not in the middle of a game day, another match, and to see other groups in there, but really to take our time as we did to be able to walk around and ask questions of different representatives and try to get a feel for what that match day experience could be like and understand the limitations. Because frankly, there are limitations in dealing with Snapdragon as a venue, and there's limitations in how it's currently run that we are going to have to where if we want to create the supporter experience that we envision, probably most of us, there's some work to do. There's some bridges to be
Mhm.
built and some trust to be made to be able to get there, because the current standard right now is incredibly limiting. I mean, we had, and I know it wasn't this way in the beginning in Torero, but by the end in Torero, we certainly had a lot more flexibility to do things within 109 than we're currently facing in Snapdragon. But I feel like it's the same conversations. It's the same initial uphill battle because you have to prove to the group that's running the stadium that you're going to be there and bring the energy, and you're going to bring all these things they normally wouldn't allow in the stadium by any other group, and we'll use them appropriately for the support of our team. They're not going to become projectiles that get thrown on the field and so forth. It's just, it's funny to read some of the rules and regulations. It's like, clearly, I mean, I, not to stereotype all college students, because I was a college student at one time, but it feels like it's really written because they expect bad college student behavior. And all the rules are to make sure that um, young adults who are there in games you know, don't do the
run
things that
run
they
onto the
might
field and
do
sort of
at other times. Yeah. So part of that's just a process we're going to have to work through to carve out those exceptions, which I think we'll get there, but there'll be
yeah,
some tough conversations.
yeah, I think I'm going to sound really smart here. That's called an activation, John. They are looking for opportunities with their brand partners to have activations. And I know this because I had a nice conversation with a guy who works at Qualcomm, who is, I can't remember his entire job title. It's like director of like marketing and brand relations and they had activations in his actual job title. And so one of the first things I did was I went up and asked him what the hell is an activation. um, which is something where like they have like he said they did some VR thing with like Mercedes Benz or something. I have no idea what that was, but if it gives you an idea, to me, I came out of that conversation and kind of my interactions with like Tom Penn and some of the other senior folks that were there. Um, you know, there is a big difference between USL professional soccer and what we're getting with MLS professional soccer. Just the level of uh, investment and money and the major league aspect of it kind of really hit home, I think, for me in talking with these people. Like, okay, this is going to be a corporate clusterfuck. Uh, uh, it's coming, and we have to get ready to maybe deal with sponsors in a way that we didn't have to in Torero. And I'm talking kind of specifically about sponsors looking to co-opt the supporter section or supporter groups in marketing. Now, if if Qualcomm wants to sponsor the locals to the tune of, I don't know, millions of dollars per season, I think that's a conversation we're all ready to have. I don't know that that's their intention, but uh, things like trying to get one of the this is just a hypothetical that came up, like you know, getting a Galaxy phone in the section to shoot video or to do some sort of thing as a kind of a marketing thing for Snapdragon microchips, right? Like this is the sort of thing I mean, that is a one small type of example, but if you imagine that multiplied over several sponsors and several different uh, good ideas that might come to the surface during a maybe a giant notepad brainstorming session. Um, that aspect is coming, and it's something that I think that we don't have a lot of experience with.
Right. I imagine there will be lots of requests or pushes by, as you said, sponsors and other things. I think part of our job as supporters is to convince these people and talk with them that your best thing is to just let us do our own thing. That will give you, like, if you want to have someone else go in there and film something while we're doing our thing, okay.
That's exactly what I told him. Like it's an open
Right.
section. Come in with your cameras and do whatever you want, but like don't expect like to co-opt or have a
Right.
supporter group be your cameraman, basically.
Right, because then that is not going to work, and I'm sure for lots of people that would be a significant pushback. But those are conversations we also have to have with these people to convince them exactly what I said is like, let us do our thing, and that will be the best marketing and everything you can. You can figure out ways to use it, but trying to work something in or some kind of tech gadget, I don't know, something that happens at a certain time, or unless we request it for some reason because it's going to help us do what we want to do to enhance that match day atmosphere. um and that's kind of what I've been telling people. Just like stay out of our hair, like trust us
Hmm.
to be able to bring and do what you know all these seven groups are on the same page with the same idea of this passion that we want to bring to the section
Sure.
come match days.
So
And
yeah,
don't mess it up.
one of the only things you can't buy is authenticity, right? And
Right.
people can sniff out a phony from a mile away. So uh, the supporter section needs to be authentic. It needs to be organic. It needs to come from the supporters, because anything else is going to be obvious to anyone looking, and
Right.
it's gonna fall short. Um, you know, I wanted to walk back a little bit to we were in the one of those lounge areas at the stadium, and just speaking to the corporatization of the sport. I don't know if any of, I'm sure people in our audience and other people who work in the corporate spaces, right, have been at some kind of team building meeting or some kind of function where they bust out the easel and the giant notepad, right, the big 3 foot tall notepad, and encourage you to make lists or do to workshop something, right. um, a very kind of corporate, like, I I I I mean, I know where that comes from, right? Like I've been in. It's not my first time having a giant pad of
Right.
paper presented to a group of people. So what they did was in two phases. One was I think for you know the operations side, like what kind of improvements are needed. Like everybody kind of agrees that we need to rigging for tifos, right? So there was kind of that infrastructure side, and there was suggestions about game day experience, and well, they had several pages of suggestions. Like you had mentioned, there was like 100 people here, and reading some of the suggestions, um, I was a little bit concerned that some folks don't have who are involved in some of these supporter groups don't have a very realistic or down to earth understanding about what a supporter group is, or what the role of a supporter group is. Just for example, there was a couple of suggestions that the club or the stadium play music after the team scores a goal. We want smoke, lasers, and music after they get a goal. Specifically, "Bro Him" by Pennywise, um, which I was just like, we are the supporter group, right? There should be no music after a goal except for whatever song or chant we decide to play after the goal. Like, we are the soundtrack in the stadium. Loud music blaring over the PA at a soccer match is, to me, it's the stuff of nightmares. It makes me think about being in Vegas watching the lights play. Um, but there it is. The second thing, and I'm wanting to get your thoughts on both of these, but the second thing was somebody had wrote that, and we have dealt with this internally with the locals as well. So this is not just an external issue. This is also one that we have to own as well. The suggestion that a pregame song be kind of played through the PA, and that become part of uh, things. Another thing that would come from the club and not from the supporters. Here's bringing it back to the authenticity thing, and uh, I just think stuff like this has to happen organically. We have to just do it instead of the club doing it. What are your thoughts on both of these ideas, and the kind of the direction that would suggest?
Well, I have lots of thoughts. The first thing I'd just like to give a quick example for people who may not fully remember. We had a tradition we did as supporters at the end of the match with the San Diego Loyal. And that was created over time. We had one of our supporters suggest that, and one of our leaders was actually Jerry Jimenez. And then, we had the chant, and then we thought, hey, this would be a cool idea afterwards, and talked with the team. And then it kind of organically developed from there and then became a tradition that we had. But it wasn't forced into the very first game. This is what we want to do, or we're going to force it. We even had the conversations, and I'm sure this is one of the things you were alluding to, of we should pick a pregame song, and like we should just pick it, and it's magically going to become like You'll Never Walk Alone, right? With Liverpool. And, you know, those things, as you said, they happen organically over time. Yes, when you look at some of the historic teams, you may see some like a Liverpool that has a song and everybody in the entire stadium sings it. They know it, they know every word, right? And then you have other groups that do some different things. So I think you get either fans or get into your corporate sponsors and your corporate people, and it's like, oh yeah, we're so excited about having a soccer team. Wow, it'd be cool. We should do all the best things of all the other groups, and let's just force it to happen on game one. And the only reason those things are successful in those other places is because they did happen organically and they got developed over time. You can't just, I mean, you can. At some point, someone had to pick the song and start it. I mean, you can just pick a song, but you can't think that, like, we're going to plan it right now, 8 months out from the first match, and or whatever we are for the first match here, and this is going to be our song forever. At some point, a song will probably develop, but it could be 10 years down the road. My other comments, when you talked about, and I think of it as the Americanization of the sport, because we do this in so many other US sports, especially indoor sports. There's lots of music, there's lights, there's noise. And I know there's some suggestions, which a lot of stadia are starting to do with these light shows, once they have better lighting now in the different stadia around the country, especially. But to me, I'm not, I'm willing to entertain a conversation about some of these things. But even when I think lights, and I think I mentioned this to a few people on Sunday, okay, when I think lights, though, almost everywhere I've seen a stadium have some kind of lights, and after game, it also comes with sound. And then that sound starts drowning out the natural celebration of what's happening in the stadium. And not just the supporter section, the entire stadium. And I think when people have their romantic view of what soccer is like and the passion that you have at the games, it's not artificially created by the PA announcers or the stadium. It's done organically by the fans, and not always just the supporters, but it's still the fans that are in the stadium watching the match. And it happens organically and things build over time. And you can't force that to happen. You can't force the clap and you can't force the song to sing. And if you do that, it does become artificial, and people don't get that strong connection to the club, to the grounds, to the team, to the city. You don't get it the same way because it's artificially being created. And so that's my hesitation for a lot of these suggestions, and the trying to overproduce what match day is going to look like instead of just like trust the supporters to kind of get things started, and trust your fans that are coming to the game that sit all around the stadium to help make that culture, and don't force feed it because some uppity up somewhere else decides they think it's a good idea to play a song at a certain time.
You know, it's terrifying to me. I mean, it sounds hyperbolic and like a dumb thing to fret and worry about, but I'm genuinely concerned. Uh, and it's not just the in-game, in-stadium experience, but even on TV. When I think about like the tension in a match that means something, how much drama, and even watching it on TV, you can just feel it in that all of these people on the edge of anxiety, and the tension is just so, you can just hear it in the din of the crowd in a broadcast, right?
Right.
Now, if you've got some organist playing "Take Me Out to the Soccer Game," like it defeats all of that atmosphere that makes the game what it is. Like whether it's on TV or it's in the stadium, you need that. It's like them wedging commercials in with a picture in picture, which I also, surprise, surprise, hate. Um, it takes away from the thing that makes, like, I love watching soccer because there's not a TV timeout every 2 minutes like watching the
Right.
NFL, which is a nightmare. And not just on TV. I mean, have you ever been to an NFL game in the stadium? It is, again, a nightmare because of all the stupid TV timeouts. Uh, but that continuity, the building of tension, and then the release whenever a goal is scored. And I think the best play-by-play and the best announcers, they shut up whenever that goal happens.
Exactly.
And the reason they shut up is because you don't have to say anything. You just hear the crowd lose their minds, and it's what makes the sport what it is. And playing hype music over a PA just makes me want to, imagining it makes me want to throw up. It's uh and I think supporters should know better. Our purpose is to, you know, be that voice, that, singing in unison. And we need to be, united. And I will, you know, there were some other things, and I'm going to pivot a little bit here. If you have any more thoughts on that, I do want to hear them. But uh, the way that the club is engaging with the supporters groups, like, I am glad that they are engaging, and obviously the people leading the charge here are people that I know and respect. But at this point, there are some things that came up on Sunday that I think really gave me pause, because you have 7 supporter groups. Everybody kind of has their own idea of what they want. Everybody has their own asks of the club. And we saw a few individual supporter groups kind of step out and make certain demands or asks of the club that were completely, you know, outside of what I think any discussions that they've had with the other supporter groups, right? Specifically, um, there's this thing that I know Riptides wants to do about this family section, which, you know, is one group of 7 asking a very big ask. And then there is, the Dago boys said that they don't want capo stands, right? So both of these issues are things that we as a supporters union need to discuss internally before taking it to the club and making an ask, or telling them what our want is. These are not things that you would just go out on your own and demand or ask of the club. This is for the whole purpose of this union alliance, is to have these conversations internally amongst ourselves, and then as a collective decide what those asks and wants are, what are we going to prioritize, and then taking that to the club, um, versus having, if one group has one very specific issue, and then say the six other groups just don't care and don't think that's a priority, like, then it probably doesn't need to be taken directly to the club. And there were times on Sunday when I felt like this was kind of counterproductive. The club is not going to do anything for one group that it's not doing for all of the groups. And I can talk about this forever, but I wanted to give you a chance to jump in, John.
Yeah, I think in general, I agree with you. I think a lot of the conversations that we had ideally would have been better served if we could have had them under the Alliance umbrella and then brought this forward to the club. But I think these first couple months here, as we are transitioning this alliance and starting to grow and working together, along with the demands the club has, right? The club has things they have to start getting in place. And if we are going to start talking about any of these things, capo stands, whatever, there's plans have to be made because certain people have to be talked to in order to actually make that happen. So I think the timing is just unfortunate, I believe, and I'm not 100% certain about this, but I think part of the reason that this absolutely happened in the last week was this was one of the dates we could get into Qualcomm, and it's difficult to schedule to do something like this. And it really couldn't wait 3, 4, 5 months down the road to get into the stadium to start some of these conversations. So, on the surface, I agree with you. Like it in a perfect world, it would have been better. And I think moving forward, we need to try to have more and more of those conversations where all 7 SGs are communicating and talking through some things. And then we do bring those asks to the club. And there are going to be times where, like, I know from the Sunday to take the capo stands, there are some groups that are pretty strongly in favor of capo stands, and there are some groups that are pretty strongly against. And I think part of working together as an alliance is we have to figure out, you know, I'll say what's a hill to die on kind of thing, when you pick your battles. But there are some things, like, in a perfect world, I have a vision of what I think that supporter section will look like. There's no way that supporter section is going to look like that because, we all have to come together, and sometimes people will bring fantastic ideas that I hadn't considered. Like, oh yeah, that's good. We should roll that in. But it's just going to take some time of working and deciding and really finding out, like, to take the capo stand example, for the groups that are strongly in favor of capo stands, are you really, really strongly in favor? Or is it kind of like, yeah, I think it would make it a little easier and it would be a preference? Or flip side, for the people who are against it, are you really, really against it? Or if I had my choice, I wouldn't do it, but I don't know if they're there. I don't really care. I wouldn't be in favor. So as we move forward, we kind of have to figure out, like,
Sure.
even though on the surface people pick one side or the other, we kind of need to have those conversations and figure out
So
what might work best for the entire group.
I don't know if you're breaking up or I'm breaking up, but I do want to say that on the capo stand specifically, I do have thoughts. Surprise. Um, I think that and Dago boys, they have a plan. They want to do things South American style and no capo stands, and no capo stands because they intend for their capo to just, I think, stand on one of the seats, because whenever they were doing a song, they definitely had somebody standing in an elevated position. But the however many thousands of seats are in that supporter area, is not going to be
3004.
it is not going to be 3,004 Dago boys who know the chants, who are all on the same page, right? You're going to have separate groups and people who have different levels of knowledge and involvement in this, the songs and the chants, which is where having the number that I kind of spit out and that I've heard is the 3 capo stands, so that we have one in the center and then one on each side of them. Um, and the reason that you would have those capos spread out is to make sure that the entire section is singing the same song, doing the same chant, and doing it in the same tempo and at the same time. It's very important for the drums to have a visual cue of the tempo from the capo. We saw this in Torero, where um, some capos were stronger than others, and sometimes a capo might start turning around and watching the game, and then not marking time, and then you start to hear the drums fall apart, because that's a very important element. That's why bands have drum majors on those capo stands, right? And that's why they have bands have directors, a band director, an orchestra has a director, right? Because you have to have somebody keeping the shit together at the same time, because not everybody counts the same in their heads. You need the cue. This is just the logistics of being a musician, and the it's a great idea, and it would work if we were all coming from the same place as supporters, but because we're not, I don't think that that's going to work in this at least not for like the first season. I think it's important to have those capo stands, and for those 3 capos to be in communication visually, be able to see each other, and then for the people in the supporter section to be able to see a capo to follow, um, just for logistics, because people need to be directed.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I could go either way. That's not anything I feel strongly one way or the other. I think we could make it work without them. I don't have a huge problem with having them. I'm just
Well,
kind of in the
without them, we're
middle
going to
on
have
this
somebody
one.
standing on a chair. Like, it's not like you're not going to have a capo in an
Well, right.
elevated
You're still going to have a
position.
capo. It's just where you place that capo. Right. Yeah, it's not having capos, because you always have someone who's kind of starting something off. Um, but there are, as we said, there's lots of conversations to be had,
Hmm.
and we're just still at these initial stages with the alliance. Um, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks before we get to our next monthly meeting with the Alliance Council, we can start sorting a few more things out. I know I have something I'd like to run by everyone when we're all together again in Chula
Did you just
Vista.
say these
So
Alliance Council meetings are monthly? May, June,
the Alliance
July,
Council
August,
itself,
September, October, November. I mean, that's 7 meetings. We're going to get everything done in 7, 8 meetings before the season starts.
no. I mean, not if it's just done by the Alliance Council. No, it's logistically impossible. So those are part of the conversations we need to have. Is okay, how do we start bringing people in? How do we start, I'll say, farming out some of the work, but not really farming out, but including people, getting more people involved? It was really nice for me to kind of get out of the Alliance Council bubble for a little bit, because the 14 of us have been having intense conversations about things, but nobody else from any of the supporter groups are really involved in those conversations, and I think we're at a point where we need to start including more people. It was really nice to have those 100 people there on Sunday who also are very passionate and want to, you know, bring that passion to the North End and Snapdragon. And we know, all of us know, it's not just 100 people. There's hundreds of more people out there that are part of supporter groups. I think all combined, we're probably over 500 people between all the supporter groups right now. We have lots of people who would like to participate and help grow this.
I
So,
was really encouraged. Yeah. Hey,
yeah,
go figure. The alliance is popular. People like it from the other groups. I was very encouraged in my conversations with members of other groups because um, people get it. There's power in numbers, and united as a union, right? Like we are very, very powerful. We are strong together
right,
in one voice. That's what we're going to be doing during the matches. One voice. And in our dealings with the club, we need to do that with one voice. And if that means that one group's priority takes a back seat to the benefit of all the groups, that's the way it has to be. Because without that unity, we don't get anything. And
right.
you know, and I think everybody gets that. People I talk to certainly seem to understand that, and there are people who are not currently on this alliance council who are very interested in doing alliance work, even
Right.
up to the point of stepping down from their positions within their individual supporter group to commit, fully to the alliance. And my opinion, that is kind of what needs to happen. I don't know when it needs to happen, but there does need to be people who are outside of the direct day to day of a group of an SG who are only focused on the collective, right? Like this is, I mean, that's what a union is, right?
Right. And we will need that. And I know I don't think recently, but maybe more than a month or two ago, some people sharing with me concerns like, how are we possibly, like, how are you going to make this work? How is this ever going to work with 7 SGs and maybe more SGs? And I really think sometimes people are in their heads overcomplicating it. We all want the same thing. We do all want to be there with one voice. We might have slightly different ideas of how best way to get there, but we had some of these similar concerns, I think, back in 109 with Chavos, right? And Chavos had songs that they wanted to bring and sing, and maybe there was, for a game or two, a little wariness or not sure how it was going to work, and then we just all found a way to make it work in 109. We had drummers that were from both groups. We had songs contributed by both groups, although, I think it would be fair for anyone to listen that Chavos probably provided the majority of the songs that we sung
and
in
the better
109.
songs. No offense to anybody
So,
who brought an
but
American Outlaws chant. I am wearing my American Outlaws shirt, but
yeah, there you go. But
yeah, those chants are
we
boring.
all sang
Sorry.
them together. We sang them together, and we drummed together, shared the capo responsibilities. I don't expect it in the long run, in the big picture, really to be any different, even with 7 SGs,
It won't
because
be.
we all want the same thing, and as long as we're moving together down the same path, like we are going to have disagreements, like the capo stands, right? There's going to be some disagreements, but we will work those out at whichever way it goes. And we will work out all the things we need to, because the ultimate goal is everyone does want to be there, shoulder to shoulder, standing together with one unified voice during the match. So I have complete confidence that we will get there. Um, how we get there, will be a little bit like, we know where we want to be. It's just trying to figure out the best way to get there. And those are some of the conversations we are having internally. And like I said, I get the chance on Sunday and everybody's there. I'd like to pull our Alliance Council together quickly just to float some ideas. And because, you know, it's hard because we're all busy, right? Everyone's busy. Everybody's got jobs, you got family, and then you're involved in your own SG, and that takes some time. And now the alliance is here, which takes time. So it's not like, hey, you know what? On Tuesday, we're going to just sit down for 6 hours and hammer this out. It just doesn't work that way. You can't, people's schedules are different. So you got to take advantage of those opportunities when you are together to maybe try to, you know, take some leaps, and then you rest a little bit, and then you take a few more leaps, as you get through there. But that's just the nature of um, people having busy lives and then
Yeah.
trying to get this thing accomplished.
Yeah. You know, I just can't stress enough how important it is to bring stuff to the club united. Because I mean, I hate to pick on the capo stands again, but it's just kind of like such a perfect example because you know the club literally is not going to make that call, because it was just one group that said that, right? Uh, the club is also paralyzed with indecision until they get a specific want, ask, need from the alliance in one voice, right? Because
Right.
that will be the thing that they act on. Um, so yeah, I hope that after Sunday that the folks from all of the SGs, all of the SG presidents, who I hope all listen and watch this pod and this stream because I am very often talking directly to each of you. We have to be united. It's just that simple. Together we're strong. Divided we
Right.
fall. These are cliches for a reason because it's true. And this is all stuff that we have to deal with internally amongst ourselves before bringing it to the club, and we don't have very much time left. Um, but I am very encouraged because I have had these one-on-one convos with people from I think almost every supporter group at this point, and everybody gets it that I've talked to. So
Right.
I am encouraged, and I think that Saturday will be a great opportunity to continue some of these conversations. I don't know, John, if you have checked the calendar lately, but Saturday is the 4th of May. What is going on the 4th of May?
Well, finally, after, I don't know, we've been talking about it, what feels like for 6 weeks, the Chula Vista Chrome Ball Tour event is finally here, which, as we have been hyping up, it's going to be the biggest tour stop. They're closing down 2 or 3 blocks of Third Avenue, car show, a fashion show, street soccer. I mean, they got all kinds of stuff that are happening. The Alliance will all have tents together over there in, I think that's Memorial Park, if I remember correctly. Um, Kind of close to where the beer garden is and the VIP area and the stage. Um, but we'll have our row of Alliance tents, and we hope to see as many people to come out as possible. And if you come out, if you can help staff the tent, that would be wonderful at some point during the day. If you just want to come and stop by as you check out the event, that's fine too. We will have merch available if you have pre-purchased things. Maybe I didn't wear my blue shirts tonight, but the blue shirts that were pre-ordered, some people still haven't picked those up. The scarves and scarf chains are in, so you can pick those up this weekend. And I believe we have some new shirts that are going to be going on sale, possibly this week. So I know we always record on a Tuesday, so there might be an announcement after this pod wraps up. but there might be some things that you could pre-purchase this week as well and pick them up at the Chula Vista Chrome Ball Tour
I've been
event.
told that you are correct. There will be more shirts and merch available for purchase on May 4th at the locals tent. This, I'm just going to, and
Can I stop you right there? I want to be very clear because we have received very clear guidelines. There will be no point of sales allowed at the event.
ah,
So if you pre-purchase it ahead of time, so pay attention to things that go out, then, if you buy it on the website, you can pick it up there. But that is, yeah, it's a hefty fine, and it's a city of Chula Vista. We gotta go for a full inspection at 10 o'clock in the morning with our tent setups, all the SGs, and the whole works here. So no point of sale at the event, but if you purchase it on the website, you could pick it up at the event.
now what if you purchased it on the website the day of the event, perhaps on your phone standing next to the tent? Could you then pick
If
up
if
the
you are
item?
working the tent and it shows that you have purchased something and it's available for pickup, uh, I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to say if it's been pre-purchased by the time you show up to the tent, you can pick up your merch. But there will
That's a
be
great.
no scanning of cards or cash handing over, or there's nothing happening at the tent.
Excellent. So no commerce, but you can pick
You
up
can
your
pick up.
pre-ordered items. That's good to hear. I was very excited because as I've mentioned on the pod before, my kid has a very busy soccer schedule on weekends, and going way back, this was an open weekend in his schedule. Um, but then one day ago, a rescheduled match popped up on Saturday at the Silver Lakes complex in Norco. So
Oh,
I will be driving my happy ass to Norco at 6 in the morning on Saturday. So, well, actually, I will have to leave at 5 for an 8 a.m. match. But an 8 a.m. match means I will make it to 3rd Avenue in time to be present for most of the
good.
day, not all of the day. I think that I would, really, if I had perfect world, I would really like to see every member of the locals at the event. This is a great chance for us to, show what we're made of. If we're the group with the most members, like we are on paper, uh, what is that doesn't mean anything if when we have one of these events, we're one of the smaller groups. That just doesn't follow, right? Like I hope that people do show up and come out and wear their local stuff and really represent our supporter group the way that we would like to be represented.
Agreed. It would be nice. It would just be nice. I enjoy seeing people. It was like when we had the 100 people at Snapdragon, even though there was a bunch of people I didn't know because they were from new supporter groups, it was also so nice to see so many people again. It starts to feel back like the experience we had before. Every time we start getting these groups, and a few more people are showing up each time, which is nice. So if we can keep building on that, kind of get that momentum going, kind of get the family back together, so to speak. It's fun. It's fun to get everyone together at these events, and hopefully we can carry that forward. So I like Andrew. I encourage everyone, if you can, if you have any time on Saturday, come on out and join us, or as little or as long as you would like.
Come through, come through. We'll be there. John, I know we had you mentioned you prepared an entire rundown, but we have run down an hour at this point. Is there anything that we didn't hit during the show that is an absolute must hit before we get out of here?
Yeah, just a couple quick news items. There is a special drum circle on Wednesday, so depending when you listen to this, it will be Wednesday, May 1st, down in Chula Vista. So um, if you're in North County, that may not be a good drive for you at the end of a workday, but if you're in the south part of the county,
never drive to Chula Vista at the end of a workday from North County. Don't do it.
yeah,
Don't do it. It's awful. It's awful.
it is awful. But the meeting at 6:30, I believe, at the Bayfront Park. So you may want to just double check the Chavos discords. But I think Dago Boys and Chavos, it's open to everyone who wants a beer. But I think they are going to be together, kind of fleshing out some things with songs that each group has. But head on down to the drum circle on Wednesday night in Chula Vista at Bayfront Park. 6:30 is the start time. We also have, let's see, we hit that. Oh, our Rocket League team. They're in what I guess is technically the double elimination portion of the Supporters Gaming League Cup. They unfortunately, out of 8 teams, they finished in 4th in the league, but after the little Swiss stage part of their tournament, they ended up getting seeded 7th out of 8 teams. So they're in the bottom half of the bracket where they can only lose once. So they will play El Matador, who they've had very tight matches with all season, but I think have generally come out on the losing end of those. So tough opponent. It'll be 8 p.m. on Wednesday, May 1st, will be that match. When I talked to KJ earlier, he wasn't sure if it was going to be streamed, but I would imagine it's probably going to be streamed on the Twitch channel. So I'm sure we'll get information posted in Discord as well. So 8 o'clock Wednesday, May 1st is an elimination match for our locals Rocket League team. And then that's it. Those are the big things. We covered everything else. There's a couple other things on there, but those can wait. They're not super important.
All right. Well, so Saturday, Chula Vista. Everybody go there. Tomorrow, everybody tune into the stream for Rocket League. And yeah, we will be back next week for a full debrief of Chrome Ball and to report back that we saw every single member of the locals in Chula Vista. I hope.
That's right.
All right. Until then, check up with the Discord for updates on any of this stuff between now and Saturday. As always, the most up-to-date information is on Discord. So until Saturday, we'll see y'all.
All right. Good night, everyone.